Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. We're delighted to have everyone this evening. The agenda will be displayed on the screens in the front of the room for you to follow along. There will be two opportunities this evening to address the board. The first being Agenda Item 6.1. The first set of public comments is relative to Agenda Item 7.1 through 11.4. Please state the agenda items you are referencing at the beginning of your comments. The second opportunity is Agenda Item 12.1. There is a sign-up sheet located on the back table in the room. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board, and a timer will be shown on the screen. And with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bell?
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Here.
Mrs. Meyer?
Here.
Mrs. Davidson?
Here.
Mrs. Altman is absent.
Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, up first this evening, 3.1, district highlights and recognitions. We do not have any, which takes us to reports. We have 2 reports this evening. 12.1, secondary scheduling update, and Mr. Meisner is going to join us. Welcome.
Good. All right. President Davidson, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, Mrs. Marshall, good evening. I am Matt Meisner, the Director of Career and College Pathways, and with me is Megan Lemon, our District School Counselor. We're excited to share with you an update on secondary scheduling, middle school and high school scheduling that is well underway. Before I do that, Reverend Bell, thank you this morning for joining us on the tour and enlightening me in some great conversation. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, when we start scheduling with middle schoolers and high school students, our counselors really start with the end in mind. So we're really thinking and working with our students to answer some of these key critical questions, because that really drives the scheduling. We used to schedule, students need math, they need science, they need social studies, but we're moving away from that and thinking more about some of these big questions. What kind of problems do you want to solve when you graduate from high school? What types of activities, tasks, what brings you joy and excitement? And then what kind of careers interest you, because that's going to be the driver for what kind of courses the student's going to be taking. Middle school has a few selections, high school has a lot of selections. So with these questions, it really helps us to start identifying specific paths for each individual student.
Good evening, everybody. So there are no major changes this year to the requirements to graduation. Students are still required to earn 20 credits in order to graduate, and those break down into the subject areas that you can see on the screen there. The only change to credits is that beginning with the class of 2026, they are required to have a half credit of financial literacy. Previously, students just had to receive instruction in that subject area, so that will be something that we're integrating starting next school year with our financial literacy course. In addition to those 20 credits, students also have to demonstrate competency. Many of our students are going to do that on the Algebra 1 and English 2 OST tests, but for students who struggle to get the test scores, we have other opportunities for them to get competency, so they'll work with their school counselor to meet those requirements that way. And then they must demonstrate readiness, which they do by earning 2 diploma seals. So the state still has 9 state-defined seals that are offered to our students, and then we have 3 locally defined seals here in Westerville that are available for our students to earn. The state also recently published a new website, the Unlock Your Future website, that students and families can use to explore the different options for competency and readiness.
I will say it feels good to come up here and tell you guys there's no major changes to the graduation requirements. That has not been the case over the last 5 years. So Here's where we're at with the high school scheduling. I'm excited to tell you we are right on course for our plan. So January, our high school counselors met with students kind of building-wide and shared with them all of the updates and information about scheduling. Through the month of February, our students submitted their course requests through PowerSchool. And then in March, which is where we're at now, those requests are being verified. Parents are logging in. That is live now.
Starting the 20th.
20th. Parents will be able to log in, check the course request, not see a schedule, but see what courses their student had registered for or signaled that they want to take. Those will be verified. And then that should be completed right up to spring break. And then in August, so between March and August, our secondary administrators are working hard with counselors to build a master schedule, which is not an easy feat to do. So that is where the magic happens. And then in August, the schedules will be ready for students to pick up at schedule pickup night. On the right-hand side, and I really do want to applaud our counselors. One of the things that I've really been working towards since I've taken over this role is having a same process for all the middle schools and all the high schools. And we met a couple times, and we had a great big meeting in December, and we finalized a calendar that we're all following. So all the middle schools are following the same calendar, all the high schools are following the same calendar for scheduling and activities. They all have access to this. It's kind of hard to see, but if it's in black, those are high school specific things. If it's in green, that's a middle school specific thing. And then if it was blue on the calendar, these were things that impacted middle school and high school together. And I'm happy to share a copy of the calendar if you'd like to see the calendar. But we are on track. The high school academic planning guide, our curriculum department did a great job this year getting that updated. It helped that there weren't very many updates to the high school academic planning guide, but it is now updated. The QR code will take you to it online. It was also printed and given to all of our 8th grade students as well. So paper copies are out there. Digital copies are available on our website with all of the changes as well.
So on the screen, you can see a copy of the course planning tool that's provided to all of our high school students. The one that's on the screen now is for our rising seniors. We have customized course planning tools for each grade level, 9 through 12, well, rising 10th through 12th graders. So like Matt was talking about earlier, we want our students to begin with the end in mind. So we provide this for our students to help them be thoughtful in their course planning before they enter their course requests into PowerSchool. On the front, it maps out the subject areas they need to be thinking about to make sure they're fulfilling those credits needed for graduation. And on the flip side, it lists the courses that most students in that grade level might select from in order to fulfill those requirements that year.
And I will say for high school, communication went out to families right before we started the process. Principals were putting that out. All of these documents were on Schoology for parents to access, so they were notified before we kind of got started in the scheduling process. So they knew what was coming at them and knew to anticipate that paper form coming home kind of with their student talking to them about the options that they had chosen before entering those into PowerSchool. Middle school, this looks very similar because middle school is on the very similar calendar. So February scheduling information was handed out. February is when course requests went in. They're a little bit later than high school. That is by design. March right now, we're in the verifying course request as well. So same thing, it'll go live on the 20th. Parents can go in and see what their student has chosen. None of that should be a shock because they should have had those conversations kind of throughout the process. So it's just verifying that what ended up in PowerSchool is exactly what they had talked about. Because sometimes things change. So it's good for them to go in and verify. And there's a mechanism in there for them to communicate with the counselor if something is off from what they had thought would be in there. And then in August, same thing with high school. Our paper schedules will be ready for students to pick up at scheduled pickup night. and then the same calendar applies. So it's really great. What I love about our calendar is high school and middle school knows what each other are doing, and kind of providing feedback. Our high school counselors providing feedback to middle school, and then middle school knowing, oh, I've got this coming up, or a family has asked me a question about their high school student. They don't have to call the high school equivalent. They can see the where they should be on the timeline.
So similarly to our high school course planning tool, we provide those for our middle schoolers as well. Obviously, there's fewer choices. It's a little more simplified, but it's a nice introduction for our middle school students to get used to the way that we do course planning in high school. Kind of eases them into this idea that you're going to make some choices, and those choices are going to help lead you to your goals. So on the front there, they circle the courses that they're planning to take, and then similarly, like I said, on the back, it describes what those courses are so that they can reference that. So this goes into a little more detail for them as far as what each course is. We have our different like the different pathways and things that students start to explore at this age. So it gives them an overview of those as they're kind of deciding what they want their future to look like.
If we would have met 2 weeks ago, I would have said this is launching live soon, but I'm happy to report tonight the website is now live. So I'm Ready for Middle School website is up and running. It is going to be introduced to our 5th grade families. I'm meeting with the elementary principals tomorrow. Nice. Kind of just going back over the website and then talking about music selection, which is the one selection 5th graders going into 6th grade get to make. But there's a wealth of information about middle school welcome night. There's information about each individual specific building. We're constantly adding resources to this for families to see. So this will be communicated out through our district information. We'll communicate it out from my office so parents know this is kind of a one-stop shop to go and see information about transitioning to middle school from elementary school. This is more just for informational for parents or community members. So if there are any questions, certainly our teachers are the wealth of knowledge for students and families about course selection, about what's coming next for their student. We also have scheduling resources in Schoology and housed on our district website. And then the QR code there is for anybody to scan that, and they would be able to see the list of counselors. Reach out to your school counselor if you have any questions. They are very proficient in this process, and they'll be able to help you with any questions. Thank you for letting us give you an update on scheduling. It's an exciting time, and we're excited with the progress so far. So any questions for Megan or I?
Just one.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that you will unveil a middle school ready to the principals
Yeah.
tomorrow for the
Yep.
5th graders. That's great, and
Yeah.
I appreciate all of the communication that goes on around this
Sure.
topic that's of so much importance to families. I'm wondering if we could also perhaps provide a link to this presentation, to this information, to our parent group leaders and our booster group leaders, the
Sure.
academic boosters, the band boosters, the PTAs, PTOs, so that they have this information. Never hurts to underscore it once or twice.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
it's a good presentation, and people ought to see it.
Thank you. Wow, hey, thank you.
One question for Matt, if I could.
Oh,
Are
no.
you? Yeah, here it comes, right? Now, and you may not know the answer to this one yet, but are you seeing anything at the high school level related to the new financial literacy requirement, which is now a course requirement and not embedded? Are you seeing it, what that's doing in terms of shifting electives and any impact on that part?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a requirement for the class of 2026, but it's a requirement we start offering it next year. And it is targeted towards juniors and seniors. So what we're doing now, and we've had a few hiccups, but we're working through those, is making sure that this is an elective our juniors and seniors can take, because it is good information, and they should know that, with the understanding that it's not required for them to take it, but it is another elective that they have in their pool right now. We have also targeted our freshmen moving up to sophomores who have either signaled they're heading towards the Career Center or IB or have an interest in that, because we do have to get this requirement out of the way before they get to the Career Center or they get to the IB program. And working with Dr. Knapp and her team, we've been talking about some alternatives that we could do, looking at maybe an online format or a blended format, because I do think we're going to run into some situations where a student would leave us, go to the Career Center, they're not going to have the financial literacy requirement completed. The Career Centers aren't planning on offering this right now, so we have to get them that credit somehow. So, yeah. It's a good little test year next year, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you're sharing this with the elementary schools, the fifth
Yeah.
grade, when do they sign up for middle school, or have they already?
They will be
Classes.
starting that. The only thing that really they have to choose from is their music selection. So
Okay.
everything else is pretty much determined for them.
Okay.
But they will go into Power School. That will start end of this week and all of next week. They can go in and make their music selection. That window is going to be open through May, because the next step is music fittings, instrument fittings, and then there's 2 presentation nights about music coming up for them. So that process is a little different, but most of their classes are predetermined. Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you both very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, our next report, 4.2, Capital Improvements Report, and Mr. Dorn is going to join us.
Good evening, President Davidson, Vice President Meyer, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, and Ms. Marshall. Tonight I have a quick overview of where we are in our capital improvements projects and what we have to look forward to this summer. While we also have a significant number of projects being completed by our maintenance department, these are the larger projects that we are presenting here this evening. So we're going to begin with our Westerville South project. That is being funded through using existing PI funds through a Certificates of Participation program, or a COPS program. In this photo, we see the renovated cafe that was completed as part of Phase 2 of the project. The South High School project is going into the 6th phase. This table is a summary of the previous phases, the current phase, and the phase that you are being asked to consider this evening, actually. Adina had Phase 1, which included the conversion of the Aux Gym to 20 new classrooms and a new competition gym. Gutnick had Phase 2, which was the first floor north academic wings, which is home of our world languages, art, engineering, those classrooms. And then Place Services has had the remainder of the phases of this project, including the phases that are up in front of you for this evening. Phase 6 was broken into 2 bid packages, the HVAC and curtain wall replacement, and a friend of mine in the back of the room told me to explain what the curtain wall is this time. The curtain wall are the metal panels on the front of the building, so they'll come off and glass will go up as part of this project. Those were bid earlier due to concerns for lead times and equipment and materials. The second bid package, which is on tonight's agenda, includes a secured entry, which includes moving the main entrance to the front of the building. So we'll be doing that as part of this package. Improvements to 3 corridors, the addition of an elevator in the main lobby that leads to the corridor outside of the media center. Renovations to performing arts locations, including the renovation of spaces to provide 2 new dressing rooms and an updated costume shop, as well as a storage mezzanine and the instrumental music room. And then there will also be renovations to the administrative offices. With the conclusion of Phase 6, the major renovations to the building will conclude. So now let's look at some of our other projects. These are our bond projects. You might remember this graphic from 2019. As we move into our bond-funded project, let's begin with this timeline and take a look. What I'd like to draw your attention to is right there where the blue and the white meet. That's the line where we currently are right now. So if you follow that straight down, you'll see where we are in the timeline. We're right on time. These bond projects buildings include Amherst, Emerson, Hamby, Hawthorne, Minerva France, Minerva Park, and Whittier. While Longfellow was originally part of these projects, we have since then moved all-day kindergarten back to home schools, and through a grant, modified part of that building to be a special education learning lab for our Best of Both Worlds programs. So there will still be some infrastructure work at Longfellow in the future, but that would just be based on needs assessments each year. So we've talked about where we are on the timeline. Notice to the right of the timeline is a little blue box. That's the second 5-year plan of the 10-year facility master plan. That is tentatively shown on this timeline, but that will require additional funding before we actually commence work on that scope. Our first bond project to share tonight is Amherst Elementary School. This is the new wing that allowed for larger classrooms and additional specialized learning classrooms in the existing building. It contains 3 kindergarten classrooms and 4 other grade level classrooms, as well as the small group space referred to as the tree house there on the left. Robertson was the general contractor on this project. The project is substantially complete and all spaces have been occupied this year, and we are hoping to have this closed out this spring. Just the paperwork left. We'll take a look at Emerson next. Emerson is currently in design and will be out to bid soon, with the project coming to the board in April. This planned scope includes the first 5 years of the 10-year needs assessment, including work on the electrical systems, plumbing systems, and general finishes such as flooring, carpet replacement, and painting. Roofing work was completed last summer. We started that as a separate part of the project. But this summer's scope for Emerson also includes an accessible clinic, work on the playground's hard surface, and AV upgrades and classroom technology similar to all of our other bond project buildings. Hamby is also currently in design and will be out to bid with the Emerson project. The planned scope at Hamby includes the first 5 years of its 10-year needs assessment, which includes replacing a rooftop unit, some electrical system work, and general finishes, again, such as flooring, carpet replacement. We're getting a bid, an alternate price on replacing the gymnasium floor at Hamby. It's about time. Yeah. And I think it might be original. So, and then some painting. The scope also includes an AV upgrade in the classroom technology, similar to the other buildings. But one other thing we are bidding as an alternate for this particular building, and that is a wall to separate the cafe from the gymnasium space. Right now, we just have a divider, a vinyl divider down there. We move on to Hawthorne. Very colorful photo up there. Hawthorne was planned as a 3-phase project, but was bid as 2 phases. Phase 1, you can see in the lime green up there, began last summer and will finish this summer, while Phase 2 will begin this summer and finish next summer. So they'll overlap the 2 phases this summer. For Phase 1, Pepper is the general contractor, and the renovations included hard wall changes to accommodate for necessary specialized learning spaces. So where we needed to convert general-sized classrooms into different-sized spaces, that's what you're seeing up there in the green. We were able to get 2 new smaller SLCs, several new small group rooms with smaller PBLAs attached, and more work in the corridors. Phase 2 and 3, which is, we're just calling Phase 2 now, will have Place Services as the general contractor, Place Services who is doing the Westerville South work. The Phase 2 scope is pink and blue in this photo. It was bid as a single package and is on tonight's agenda a little bit later in the project. And this has a classroom renovation as a focal point for the rest of this work. We'll move up the road a few hundred feet to Minerva France Elementary School. And as you might recall, Minerva France was featured in the Columbus Dispatch in August of 2022. And we have recently learned from our design team, Triad Architects, that this project has won a Learning by Design Spring 2023 Outstanding Project Award. Very, very good news for us here this spring. This building opened this year with minimal issues, only those typical with the completion of a new build. Just like Amherst, this project was completed by Robertson Construction, and we're very happy with the work and hope to have the project closed out again this spring. In the fall, we had a presentation regarding the positive effects of opening Minerva France Elementary School across the district with our other elementary schools, and this slide is just a summary of those effects. So as you take a look at, we were able to resolve a lot of existing building capacity issues a significant number of new specialized learning places across the district where we were able to, once you move some students out, you were able to convert some classrooms in other ways, and actually some preparation for some potential growth. Let's move on to our other new build. So we're looking at Minerva Park Middle School. And what you're looking at are photos on the left. Well, I'm going back and forth with these, but this photo on the left is a rendering, the design team's rendering of the space, and the photo on the right is how that space appeared on March 1st. So still some work to do. Minerva Park is scheduled to open this fall, and Dr. Carter has shared that the building is about 80% staffed with its teaching staff at this point. He's planning a virtual tour for families that will attend the new schools on May 2nd, moving up night. Parents and students will be able to see the building as it was designed, similar to the images on the left, rather than its current state. Along with providing middle school on the southern end of the district, we also have the benefit of right-sizing our other middle schools with the opening of Minerva Park. Our more than 3,200 middle school students will now be split 5 ways rather than 4 ways. A couple other photos just to catch you up on where we are in this particular project. So the photo on the left there is a rendering of the cafe and the serving area. The photo on the right, it's actually taken from the other corner of the diagonal. But that is the cafeteria as it stands right now. On the left is the current state of one of the art rooms, and there is a rendering of that same art room on the right. The gymnasium. And the media center. So the media center is called the Pantheneum. We're going to give credit to Mr. LaRose. Mr. Jeff LaRose is our creative team member. And of course, an Athenaeum is a Greek word for the origin for a place used for teaching or an institution promoting literacy or scientific learning. And so instead of the Athenaeum, the Minerva Park Pantheneum. Okay. All right, we'll move on to Whittier after that. The Harmony Cafe.
Harmony Cafe, yes.
So Whittier, similar to Hawthorne, again, was originally planned as 3 phases, bid as 2 phases. The first phase is the gray area up here, all the hard wall changes. Pepper is the general contractor for phase 1. Place Services will be the general contractor for phase 2. And again, these phases will overlap this summer. Phase 1 had a new kindergarten classroom, several small new group rooms, a new art and music room addition, which is there on the right side of the image, and an office renovation and a secured entry. Phase 2 will be completed again by Place Services, and again, its highlights are the general classroom renovations and also the cafeteria renovation. On the left is a design team rendering of the addition, and on the right, it's taken from the opposite side, but that is the current state of the addition. So the addition at Whittier Elementary is a music room and an art room. Since we were adding 2 rooms, we wanted to make sure that all students had access to the new space, and so that's why we made them the general spaces. And finally, we're going to take a look at the remaining projects. Not the big bond projects, but just a lot of other projects that are going on this summer. Some of these projects are funded through the bond and others through our permanent improvement funds. The secured entries at Genoa and Walnut Springs are also on tonight's agenda, with Black Bronco being selected as the general contractor. These 2 projects, along with South's Phase 6 and Whittier's renovations, will complete our 3-phased secured entries projects that we started in 2019. Many of these projects are targeted, needs-based projects based on the recommendations of our members of our custodial and maintenance teams through their needs assessment processes in conjunction with our facilities department's administrative team. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you how valuable our maintenance and custodial teams and our environmental health and programs are. The team members are very interested in doing the best that they can to support teaching and learning, and they are responsive and serious about their work, and in providing the best environment for our students and staff. And as you can see in this list, there are several projects both inside and outside of our buildings, in addition to those other facility master plan projects that we just went over. So this is going to be a busy summer for Westerville schools. Thank you.
Any questions?
Ellen, just like I asked before, communicating where we are and where we've been. And by the way, where we are is absolutely wonderful, given all of the constraints that came to us because of the pandemic. As we worked through everything that needed to happen, as we worked through labor issues and supply chain issues, to be where we are is an amazing feat, and kudos to everyone involved with that. That being said, there are, as there always are with any project we do, rumors in the community of things that are not necessarily so. And in fact, there have been some fairly egregious rumors out there about particularly Westerville South. And it kind of hurts your heart to read them when you know what the reality is of Westerville South. So what I'm asking is to consider two strands here. One is to consider whether it makes sense to put out virtually some pictures of where South is and what's going on with South and what has been done with South, and reminding people that it is a six-phase project. Another would be to send a link to this presentation, if possible, to send that again to our parent groups, but also to our community partners and perhaps our community email list, because there is so much here that is so important, but unless you're thinking about it regularly, you might miss so much of what's happened. So if we can look at ways to get that word out, it's a wonderful success story for everybody in this community, and it is also, I think, an important way to help people understand the reality of what these projects are.
Certainly. Just to address the social media posts about South High School, projects are challenging. But we feel like we're in a really good state, and that building's been in a very good state throughout these several phases. But what we did is, after we did hear about those posts, we put a team together. I think there may be 10 or 12 of us, including an environmental engineer, the design team, our environmental health and safety manager, and other members of our facilities team. And we walked the project. We walked the entire building, looking for things of note. And it's in very good shape. So we're very proud. If anybody wants to walk the building with me, it's probably a little bit easier to see than a few photos. I've got 1,000, so we can share photos. But I would invite anybody that would like to walk the building, just actually reach out to me, and we'll set something up. It's the easiest way to see how awesome it is.
Anybody else? Thank you. Appreciate it. 5.1, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Education meeting held on Monday, February 27th, 2023, as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments here? Hearing none?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. We do not have any public comments this evening, which takes us to financials. 7.1, amended resolution accepting the amounts and rates for tax year 2022, collection year 2023, as determined by the Budget Commission, and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, do you want to talk to us about this?
Yes, thank you, President Davidson, members of the board. So we do this every year. This is where we're setting the rates for calendar year 2023 calendar year 2022 that will be collected this year. So we set the rates, we estimate the rates at the beginning of the year, and this is like truing up the rates for calendar year 2022, which are built this year.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 7.2, a resolution accepting amounts and rates for tax year 2023, collection year 2024, as determined by the Budget Commission, and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you again. So this is for the new year, calendar year 2023 collection in 2024. And the same rates that were set for 2022 are used as estimates. And so we'll come back next February, March, and approve the actual rates once the values are determined.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none?
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 7.3, a resolution to approve the purchases in accordance to ORC 5705.41 and Board Policy 6320. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
And whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So these are what we call then and now purchase orders. This is where we have a purchase order that was in place after an invoice date. So we have two in front of you this evening. One is for Gibson Consulting. This was an incident where we had closed a purchase order before the final payment had been made. It was encumbered and budgeted and all that. And the other one is for transportation, Main Transportation. And that was just a case of where we didn't have enough open in a purchase order to cover the current expenses.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes, which takes us to the personnel consent agenda. Would it be okay if we took this as one?
Yes.
May I have a motion for 8.1 through 8.13 for the personnel consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Dennis, welcome.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you, President Davidson, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, and Ms. Marshall. I would like to present to you for your consideration tonight's personnel consent agenda. The items on tonight's agenda represent regular action items with regards to hiring and resignations, contract status changes, and several one-time payments. There are some items to be noted in tonight's agenda. We have 6 retirements to recognize this evening. Rose McInturf with Food Services at Westerville Central High School with 17 years of service. Susie Peterfee, also with Food Services from Annhurst Elementary School with 17 years of service. Denise Stuckey-Zander, school nurse at Westerville Central High School with 24 years of service. Betsy Denny, 5th grade teacher from Faust Elementary School with 24 years of service. Krista Houston, an intervention specialist in our Early Learning Center preschool downstairs, with 30 years of service, and Sarah Schaefer, a vocal music teacher from Genoa Middle School with 40 years of service. A heartfelt thank you to all of them for their combined 152 years of service to our students of Westerville. The final agenda item to note is the resignation of our superintendent, Dr. John Kellogg, at the end of this fiscal year. Dr. Kellogg has served our district and community for the last 10 years, and we would like to say thank you and wish you all the best on your next chapter. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might all have.
Any questions or comments?
No questions for you.
Okay.
This is a momentous evening when a superintendent offers his resignation. It is momentous for the district. You know, I have worked with 3 superintendents during my time on the board here. I've worked with dozens of superintendents in my professional career. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that John Kellogg ranks in the very top tier of all of those superintendents. You know, John, in big ways that people see, and in a lot of small ways that people never saw and aren't seeing now, you have enhanced this district and strengthened this district, and at the same time, you have built the entirety of the community into a better community. You have a remarkable gift for never losing sight of the individual student, at the same time that you never lose sight of what is for the greater good. Few people have that gift, and you do. And I thank you for the time that I have gotten to work with you. It has been a joy and will continue to be a joy in these next very short weeks, very short couple of months, 2 or 3 months. And then as you go forward, I hope we continue to have the chance to work together. A person like you is a gift I don't want to give up.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. Okay, moving on to old business. We do not have any this evening. That takes us to new business, and we have several new policies. We'll start with 10.1, first reading, policy 0131.1, technical corrections, and that's Ms. Marshall.
Yes, thank you. So this was a recommended policy from Neola, and it is a new policy that we are suggesting that we add, and it just allows us to make some typographical errors, corrections in policy, nothing that would change the substantive nature of a policy. And this would give us the flexibility for that.
Thank goodness. Believe it. Yay. Yay, Neola. I'm saying that.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, moving on. 10.2, first reading, policy 2280, preschool program, and Ms. Relford, welcome.
Good evening, President Davison, Vice President Meyer, Dr. Kellogg, Mrs. Marshall, and members of the board. I too bring a adjustment based on the recommendations of Neola as well. As it relates to our preschool program, not as a lot has changed, and it does create more flexibility for the district as well. Any questions for me?
Hearing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Up next, we have 10.3, 10.4, and 10.5, first reading for policy 1615, 3215, and 4215, tobacco use and prevention. And Ms. Dennis is back with us. Welcome back.
Thank you, and good evening again. This update to policy further defines the term tobacco to align with the Ohio Department of Health's 100% tobacco-free schools model policy. It does not substantially change our practice. The inclusion of new education and training section in the policy is recommended to be a permissive May standard to permit the district time to review and develop any necessary training program and options for how to and whom the training will be provided. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Hearing none, do you want to move on to 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, policies about volunteer, so a couple different. The 322009, this one looks like it's rescinded for volunteers. Policy 4120.09, another one rescinded for volunteers, but then 10.8, policy 8120 is a new policy for our volunteers.
That is correct. So the recension of 3120.09 and 4120.09 is to combine them into one policy that would live in the operations section of board policy under 8120, along with the administrative guideline that goes with it. The change to the operations series of policy recognizes that volunteers are not considered employees of the district, but rather function in a very important, but more in a support general to the general district operations. However, in addition to moving the policy's location, new language has been added to address requirements for volunteers who support athletic activities. Under the Ohio High School Athletic Association general regulations, all coaches, whether paid or unpaid, so this is why the unpaid piece is in here, must hold an active pupil activity permit to coach in any Ohio High School Athletic Association member school athletics for grades 7 through 12. If the individual has applied for but has not been issued the permit, they may not interact with any athletes even while under the supervision of a credentialed coach until the permit is issued. This policy specifically governs unpaid volunteers. Any employee who receives supplemental contracts or stipends to supervise extracurricular activities are covered in other policies. So I just want to call that out. So if you have any other questions.
Hearing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to recommended action, 11.1, donations. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And we are always so grateful for all of our donations. Any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Hearing none?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 11.2, a resolution declaring impracticality for transportation. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And I'd like to welcome Mr. Schneider.
Good evening, President Davidson, Vice President Ms. Meyer, Mr. Bell, Dr. Nestor Baker, Dr. Kellogg, and Ms. Marshall. Before you this evening is a declaration of impracticality for identified students. Ohio law allows for public schools to determine impracticality of transportation after consideration of a number of factors, such as the cost of providing transportation and the number of students transported. This past December 12th, the board passed a resolution declaring 21 students impractical for transportation. And before you this evening is a list containing 11 additional students that have been deemed impractical to transport. Our Department of Purchasing and Logistics has evaluated each listed non-public private school student per the requirements of Section 3327.02 of the Ohio Revised Code and declared the listed students impractical to transport. Therefore, approving this resolution would allow the district to offer payment in lieu of transportation in the manner provided per the Ohio Revised Code, and the payment being offered is determined by the Ohio Department of Education. Any questions for you this evening? Thank you.
Hearing none. Thank you so much.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 11.3, approve the capital improvements for bid package 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 at various school buildings. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dorn?
Good evening again. Earlier this evening, I referenced several projects that were on the agenda for approval tonight. This resolution pertains to 5 of those projects. Bid Package 1 is the Phase 6 construction renovation of Westerville South High School that includes the administrative offices, clinic, attendance offices, theater dressing rooms, and former athletic offices. This work also includes construction of a second elevator in the academic areas, a storage mezzanine for the instrumental music room, and providing a secured front entrance, as well as a more recognizable front entrance in the front of the building. Bid Package 2 is the balance of the construction renovation work at Hawthorne Elementary School that includes classrooms, the administrative offices, the cafe, and media center. Bid Package 3 is the balance of the construction renovation work at Whittier Elementary School that includes classrooms, the cafe, and the media center. Bid Package 5 is for the construction of a secured entry at Walnut Springs Middle School. The work includes relocating the administrative offices to the east on the east entrance on the south side of the building. And Bid Package 6 is for the construction of a secured entry at Genoa Middle School. That work includes relocating the principal, assistant principal, secretary, and receptionist from the center of the building to the northeast entrance. Bids were solicited in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code on January 16th. We received 3 bids that were publicly read on March 2nd. The lowest responsible bid for bid packages 1, 2, and 3 was a combination bid submitted by Place Services in the amount of $11,418,200. The lowest responsible bid for bid packages 5 and 6 was a combination bid submitted by Black Bronco in the amount of $932,558. The bid amounts include all alternates as identified in the bid tabs that were submitted with this resolution. The total cost for all work is under the architect's estimate. You may have noticed that bid package 4 was missing. We received 0 bids on the HVAC work at 8 other buildings. That is back out to bid today. So we will have that rebid and hopefully have that for you April 10th. The work at Genoa, Walnut Springs, and South is to be substantially complete by August 1st of this year. The work at Hawthorne, Whittier, and Whittier is to be substantially complete by August 1st of 2024. As with all of our projects, the contractors are required to perform the work in a manner that does not have a negative impact on school operations. Both contractors have successfully completed work for our district in the past, and it is being recommended that the board accept Place Services bid for bid packages 1, 2, and 3, and accept Black Bronco's bid for bid packages 5 and 6 as presented.
Any questions or comments?
One quick question. So we received 0 bids for the HVAC work. Any idea as to why that is?
I think that there was, that whole entire package had a lot of volume in it. But one of the things that we're hearing is that there is our HVAC contractors are having a hard time finding some electrical subcontractors. And so a couple of them have since then said that they think that they've got somebody lined up, which is why we're able to put it back out for bid. And hopefully we'll have a couple of bids this time. But I think what I've heard from Triad is that it was a shortage of electrical subs during that bidding window.
Thank you.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 11.4, may I have a motion to approve the construction of the exterior bleachers for Minerva Park Middle School?
So moved.
Second.
At our last board meeting, we shared that the Minerva Park Planning and Zoning Commission approved our athletic field design for Minerva Park Middle School. Their approval included the construction of the athletic field bleachers. The scope of work includes the construction of aluminum bleachers that will be located on the west side of the new running track. The bleachers will have a seating capacity of 246 occupants and includes an ADA-compliant ramp leading to 5 wheelchair-accessible spaces with adjacent companion seating. The work also includes construction of a concrete pad that will support the new bleachers. The design was modeled from the stadium bleachers located at Walnut Springs Middle School. 3 bids were received and publicly read on March 8th. The lowest responsible bid was submitted by E&D Specialty Stands in the amount of $190,330. E&D's bid is under the architect's estimate and keeps us compliant with the new middle school's construction budget and schedule. The site will be available to start construction on May 1st, and the work is to be substantially complete by August 1st of this year. We have one remaining bid package associated with the athletic field work to be presented at a future board meeting, and that package will include the storage building, ticket booth, the scoreboard, and some electrical site work. It is being recommended that the board accept E&D Specialty Stands bid for the exterior bleacher work as presented.
Any questions or comments?
Nope.
Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Dorn.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. We do not have any public comments this evening, which takes us to board comments. Would anyone like to make any comments this evening?
Would the board allow me just a few moments?
Absolutely.
Do you want me to wait, or?
No, you can go.
So thank you for this evening and this opportunity. So I just want to share, and I've written it just to keep myself on task. The decision to leave Westerville and take on a new professional role was a difficult one. I feel very fortunate to have served as superintendent here for 10 years in collaboration with the Board of Education, staff and teachers, our families and students, and the community at large. We've continued to build on a history of success. There's a long list of accomplishments we have shared together that are professionally gratifying. These include addressing facilities needs, as we saw this evening, adding and growing our all-day kindergarten program, building our health engineering and business logistics pathways, our equity work, building a strong elementary literacy program, and addressing middle school programming, as well as focusing on the social and emotional needs of our students. And there's a lot more from the past decade to be proud of. But what's been most impactful for me are the people I've gotten to work with and engage with during my years in Westerville. Many of them here in the back row there that I not just consider colleagues but friends. This school community is full of talented and passionate educators who bring their best every day, so our students get a world-class education every day. I look forward to my new role with Columbus State and the Education Service Center of Central Ohio. There's some wonderful opportunities growing in our region, and working with these two outstanding organizations will allow us to add new and better educational experiences for students across the region. Thank you to the board, staff and educators of our district, the families we serve, most of all our students, and the community at large for your support and confidence over these last 10 years. Most importantly, I want to thank my wife, who's here, my 2 kids, Aaron and Ian, for their love and support during this time. They are brilliant people who've kept me grounded, helped me think through complex dilemmas, and offered me unconditional love that kept me going when things were challenging. I appreciate feeling like I belong here in Westerville, so thank you for that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just a couple of things that I would like to share this evening. One, I would like to thank and congratulate all of our retirees that are retiring from the district. Thank you for your many years of service and the contributions that they have made to the lives of so many students and families across those many years. And then finally, I would just like to say to you, Dr. Kellogg, what an honor and a privilege it has been to serve and to work side by side with you over the course of the last 10 years. It doesn't seem like 10 years when I stop and think about it. I remember serving as part of the community selection committee that was a part of that selection process, and sitting in sitting in those interviews. Myself and a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, we laugh and joke because we remember sitting through those interviews and saying to each other, yeah, that's the guy right there. That we think will be the next superintendent here in Westerville. And it actually panned out to be true. So from then, when I was president of the African American Parent Association, to now sitting as a member of the Board of Education, thank you for just the opportunity to journey together as we serve together the students and the families of the Westerville community. And also not just in a professional capacity, but also in a personal capacity. We got a chance to get to know each other well over the course of 10 years. Not always agreeing, but at least being able to agree to disagree in an agreeable fashion. But truly, you, your wife, and your family have been a blessing to me and my family over the course of those 10 years, and your contributions, at least for me, will never be forgotten. Everything from we served together during one of the most trying times in our nation's history. So over the course of the pandemic, I think we talked just about on a daily basis as to what comes next and what should we do with what the world was handing us at that time. To your support when my family experienced crisis, as well as little nuggets. The advice you gave me in terms of what a college search process should look like and how to navigate those tricky waters with teenage daughters. Thank you so much for that wise advice. To the Post-it note that I have on the bottom of my computer screen at home still to this day. We were talking and you said, one of the things that guides me every day is the fact that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And so you have dedicated your life and career to making that opportunity, those opportunities available to all students. And that stuck with me so much that I wrote it down when you said it, because I was like, okay, I'll give him credit for a little while. Then it's going to become, well, I always say talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. So thank you so much. for all that you have done for not just Westerville City Schools, but for the community of Westerville as well.
Well, John, I would just want to say congratulations and good luck. I wish you the best, and thank you for your service. I appreciate all of the stuff that happened today as well with Senator Brenner, who came and got to tour our schools and see what a great place we have and all the great work that we're doing. So I appreciate you guys putting those together. I think it's really important for our legislators to understand what they're voting on. I do have a few. I've pared it down because there are so many pieces of legislation that are moving through our State House right now that will impact our school district in one way or another, or our students. And quite frankly, it'd be nice if they would just go home. But on March 1st, Senate Bill 1 passed the full Senate in a party line vote, 26-7, voting. Its companion bill, House Bill 12, had its third hearing last week and will continue to hold more hearings over the next couple of weeks. Just to remind people, if you're just tuning in for the first time, Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 12 will reform the functions and responsibilities of the State Board of Education, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and the Ohio Department of Education. If our elected officials and people of the school district have questions regarding the great programs we offer and why this legislation will just insert more politics into our school systems, I would urge them to reach out and really understand what we're doing here. On February 15th, the state operating budget for fiscal year 24 and 25, House Bill 33, was introduced by Representative Jay Edwards, a Republican from Nelsonville. Now we'll begin the process for funding the state's programs and departments, including school funding. The bill will need to be fully passed by July 1st of 2023 when the General Assembly breaks. And trust me, they do everything in their power to make that July 1st deadline. House Bill 1 was introduced by Representative Adam Matthews, a Republican from Lebanon, and would modify the law regarding property taxation and income tax rates. This will have an impact on the amount of revenue our school district would receive to support our children's education. It was referred to the House Ways and Means Committee and will have its third hearing on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. House Bill 10, introduced by Representatives Jamie Callender, a Republican from Concord, and Bride Rose Sweeney, a Democrat from Cleveland, would continue to phase in the Fair School Funding Plan until fully implemented and funded. This bill was introduced on February 15th and referred to the House and Finance Committee. That's it. Thank you.
Just a couple things for me this evening. I want to highlight two other people that were on our agenda tonight. Our mental health specialist from Central, Zelia Tang and Hannah Zoller. I just want to say that they will be greatly missed. They made a huge impact to our district, and hopefully maybe they will find their way back someday. To John, congratulations, and thank you for 10 years and all of your accomplishments. And to Kim for sharing John with us and your family. It's a lot of time and love and everything you put into the district. I appreciate it. And that takes us to dates, times, and locations. 14.1, the board will meet in regular session here on Monday, April 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. here at the Early Learning Center, which just takes us into an executive session. 15.1, an executive session for purpose of preparing for, conducting, reviewing negotiations with employees regarding their compensation or other terms and conditions for their employment. May I please have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So at this time, we're going to enter executive session, but we will come back here to adjourn.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
7:05.
It is 8:21, and we've just returned from executive session, and may I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. We're adjourned.